All right, so here we are at the last lecture, the last chapter. So I think there's going to only be three recordings. I'll go through this real quickly, and we can talk about it next week. But I'm not going to go through everything in detail. I mean, you can read and look, but we want to kind of sum up the class with the kind of the environmental awareness that you need and things that we need to be doing. So the greening of American campuses. I debated whether to do this or not, and decided yes, it's probably important. What I want you to realize is there is an effort for schools to become sustainable, and you can see they give lots of examples here of some of the schools that do it. Um, and so the building on the top is the environmental studies building um, in Oberlin College. And then the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh, there's the picture of the biodigester. And so they're going in those directions. And then there's Mount Sac, who are petitioning against solar power. So we're obviously not doing our job, and so we need to do better. All right. How are economic systems related to the biosphere? Um, the economic systems depend on natural capital. That's all the way from exam one. Those are all the things that we can use. And so it really is about supply and demand and free market economics or economies. Um, Market-based economies are buyers and sellers interact competitively for goods and services. Free market are just supply and demand. So you want to kind of know that, and then we get into the free market economic system. Um, no one company can control prices, and it should include direct and indirect costs, full cost pricing, which we've talked about before. And then we also have information about what that is happening, and there are probably no true free markets. Okay, types of capitals and resources used to produce goods, services. This is natural capital, again from chapter one, resources and economics services produced by the earth's processes. Human capital, which is really, our labor, skill, knowledge, and then manufactured capital, which is the machinery and the infrastructure. So the sustainability of economic growth. To make this work, unfortunately, we have high throughput economy, and you have lots of services and products going through. That's the driven by uh, buying, and that's kind of what we do here in the United States. We go through lots of stuff, but we also produce lots and lots of waste. So sustainability, we have to flip. We have to come up with new ways of doing this. And so neoclassical economies, unlimited growth. There's all kinds of resources. We're just going to push, push, push. Manifest destiny. That whole concept. Ecological economies now. We're part of the system. We cannot continue to do this at this level. It's not sustainable. And I do want to point out it would take 2 Earths to sustain the world's projected population and total renewable resource use in 2030. So, not possible. We have got to cut that in half. And then environmental economies actually are trying not only to have an economy, but actually better the environment. So I would say I ask a question on there, where are we? And we're somewhere in between those two. Um, probably most of us kind of have an ecological economy, at least in this class. But I'm not sure that's 100% true for the world. All right, estimating the future value of a resource. This is one of the problems we have when we try to figure out what something is worth, and we have what's called a discount rate. If that discount rate is too high, it does not make any sense for somebody to wait on using their resource. And the example used in the book are trees. So if you gave somebody a 10% discount rate, it means something's worth $1 million. 45 years from now, it'd only be worth 10,000. So it would make sense. Hey, I'm going to use it now. It's worth the money. And so high discount rates do not make sense. Zero discount rates are the ideal, but hard to put that into practice. Okay, cost benefit analysis. We always have to weigh the costs and the benefits. It's a tool that we should be using. And the problem is to do this, we have to know the estimates for the ecosystem services that are being used, and we have to look at both short and long-term costs for all affected population growth or groups. And so that's often hard to do where we don't do it evenly among different population groups. And that's where equity comes in. And we really want to compare that to, alternative courses of action. You want to pick the best one. So obviously full cost pricing is the way to go. And this is not widely used because people that are making money and destroying the environment don't want that because their products would cost too much. And so this is something that I think, and we talked about it with gasoline, and gasoline would cost about $15 a gallon. So it's kind of hard to wrap our heads around the idea that we obviously don't want to pay that much, but that's really what it is costing. And so we have got to get closer to that in the near future. All right, shifting from environmentally harmful to environmentally beneficial subsidies. So right now we subsidize companies and we don't really look at how much damage they're doing to the environment. And then the reality is if you're going to give subsidies, it needs to be for those that are actually benefiting the environment. And so it can be done. And Norman Myers, a very famous ecologist, has estimated the world's taxpayers pay at least $2 trillion a year. And that's $3.8 million that should be minute, not in the moot. A year just for environmental health effects. Average American taxpayer, that's about $2,000 per year, just in trying to clean up subsidies. He calls those perverse subsidies. All right, tax shifting. People don't like the word taxes. People don't like to be taxed. Right now, we tax you on payroll and all kinds of different things. The idea is to change this, is to turn it around. You can call these green taxes. And the idea here is that we actually tax you for the amount of pollution and that you produce. If you're driving a car, the idea was how much time on the road. These aren't new. Well, they are, I guess, new taxes in the sense, but the idea is not they're offset. Your taxes wouldn't change. It's just what you're paying for would change. So some people would drop. If you're environmentally friendly, your taxes would drop. And if you are polluting the world, yours would go up. And so it makes sense. And actually 70% of voters in both Europe and US support this, although you would not know it by the way our government runs. So there are environmental indicators. One is the GDP, the gross domestic product. The problem is when they started this, they never really was designed to take into environmental conditions. You don't really see that in there if you look at it. It's all about performance. There are other better indicators for environmental things, like genuine progress indicator is to attempt to kind of work in the environmental hazards involved. And then there's the new one, the Global Green Economy Index. And it's performing, looking at the performance, 130 countries, your book says 60 something. That was a few years ago. Now it's in 2020, they're looking at 130. And the United States ranks about 31. In the book, we were actually 30. So we are falling. We are failing. All right, cap and trade. This is another controversial issue, and the idea here is we assume that we can take so much environmental hit, and then your company has to decide what it's going to do. And so the idea is, you here's your standard, you only can pollute this much. Um, and what you do then is you can buy credits. In other words, okay, I've got to my point, I still want to pollute, or you want to expand or whatever. So what you do is this other company over here is not using theirs, so they sell it to you. So the problem is with this idea is you do have a pollution cap, which is a good thing, I suppose, but you are still allowing for that pollution to occur. Some companies are now not selling products, they're selling services, and Xerox did this. I'm not sure this is a great example because Xerox is kind of crashing and burning. There was a hostile takeover, I think, at the beginning of the year for this company. But the idea here is they were pretty smart. They used to sell you printers, and then they'd become obsolete and they crash and burn. They changed their idea where they did document services, and then what you would do is you would lease the Xerox machine. So you didn't own it; they owned it, and they would come and repair it. You would have a contract with them in the lease. And then the idea was obsolete. They'd take back in, hopefully recycle it. Who the hell knows what Xerox did with them? But that's kind of the idea behind this. And it works better. It actually does. And so not too bad. Okay, poverty. We got to solve poverty. That's one of the main issues. And according to the World Bank, poverty is the way of life for 2.5 billion people. One of every three of the world's people live on less than $3.10 a day. 1/5 of the world's population lives in extreme poverty, $1.90 a day. And that wouldn't even buy your coffee in the morning. That is something we have to remedy. Okay, and then micro lending. It's big banks. You have to have collateral and these problems. So there are people that fall through the cracks. They don't get money for business and opportunities. So Muhammad Yunus decided micro lending. So on a case-to-case basis, small loans, and he won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2006 for this idea. The repayment rate on these loans are 95%, mostly going to women for start businesses, and that is twice the average of the big collateral loans. But again, I don't. The big collateral loans, obviously, they want to be paid, but they're also willing to take the collateral. So maybe they're more likely to lend to somebody who is not going to pay back. All right, the Millennium Development Goals. You can see the 8 there listed. I'm not going to make you memorize the 8, but kind of have an idea about what's going on. And the idea here was most developed countries pledged to donate 8.7% or $7 of every 1,000 to less developed countries to get them out of poverty and better health and those kinds of things. And only 5 countries actually met their goals. The United States is woefully below that 0.16%. Shifting to a more environmentally sustainable economy, it means instead of going for high throughput, we need to go toward low throughput, low economies. We need to slow that waste. And we've talked about that before in the 5 R's. It's got to be done. And actually, waste is lost money. If you figure out how to reduce waste, you're making more money. And that's really where we have to go. And with that, we'll stop the share and stop the recording.